All right, go ahead. All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, this is going to be a fun one because how can you make a bad thing even worse? Well, enter postmodernism. But the sad thing is, I don't even think that's the worst thing wrong with this show. For
Yeah,
those that are just joining us and haven't read the headline, we're talking about Wheel of Time season 2. And I think we're going to get through the first 3 episodes because that's what we've gotten
yeah.
as far as our viewing pleasure or misery, depending on how you've
No,
looked at it.
misery, misery.
And if you haven't watched it yet, it's going to be all spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, don't listen. But if you want spoilers to know if you want to go support that thing and actually watch it, then go ahead and watch it because you won't go to Amazon and give them the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, well, and I hope we can do that because I mentioned that to it was my wife I was talking to the other day about, why do this or why does it matter? And one of my points was for me, when I watch these videos, like I don't know, you probably don't know who Mahler is, but he's one of the guys on that's frequently on Neurotic and the Real BBC and those, so there's some crossover there. And he does these ludicrously long critiques. His last one was on Ant-Man and Quantum Mania, and it was 6 hours long.
Which sucks if you actually know anything about quantum physics, but I digress.
Right. I did not watch the movie. I have no intention of ever watching the movie because I've already seen enough to know that the MCU is dead. And so for me, it's
That's because
cathartic.
they're owned by Disney. But
Exactly.
yeah.
So besides the fact that he himself is entertaining, it's cathartic to see someone else dismantle this thing that I used to like and is now awful. Um, the other thing is I've referenced, I think I mentioned this the other day, the Glenn Beck Saturday podcast, which is a long form interview. His most recent one was with Steve Deace, and I highly recommend it because you he really goes in depth on some things that he's kind of snarkily and flippantly said recently, but the thing that jumped out at me was actually a personal story that I thought was really cool. Dace grew up in Michigan, so the poor guy is a lifelong Lions and Tigers fan, and he
Hey, I
got
was a
to
Lions fan in the beginning because when I started watching
Barry.
football, Barry Sanders was a thing,
He was
and
mesmerizing.
I had no team because I refused to be a Cowboys fan just because I lived near Dallas and near being
Near-ish.
4 hours
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
Yeah. So I really just kind of I liked the colors, and Barry Sanders existed. So
yeah.
unfortunately, they also had Scott Mitchell at the time, so which meant there was 5 interceptions every opening wild card game, and they
So
never
I'm
got to
drawing a
see.
blank on the guy's name, but while he was down at the Blaze Studios here in the DFW area, um, a former Tiger was in there from the 80s teams, which were really good, like went to multiple World Series. I believe they went to 2 or 3 in the 80s. And he got to meet him. And he was talking about basically what we're doing here, why it matters. Because he said when he got to shake that guy's hand, he was instantly 12 years old again. He was 12 years old, sneaking down to the living room because the Tigers were on a West Coast road trip, and he turned the volume all the way down and then turned the TV on he wouldn't wake up his parents because he was staying up way past his bedtime on a school night. But he had to watch the Tigers. He had to watch those teams because they were not just his team, but they were good, compelling teams. And so it was it was a childhood dream come true. And we used to have those kinds of things. We used to have those escapisms. Another guy I watch, the channel is Heel versus Babyface, and he went viral on Twitter recently because he had this epic rant because he was playing a game called Starfield, and in the character creation, it asks for the pronouns of your character, which is just stupid and absurd. and then come to find out later as you play the game, it doesn't even matter. It ends up not mattering.
Yeah, well, that's
So
what
it's
we call
total
virtue
virtue signaling.
signaling.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so his point was, and the point he's been making subsequent to this ludicrous viral video that happened is, I can't remember exactly how I phrased it, but it's something like make escapism great again, or make escapism entertainment again. That's the point, is you you don't have to, whoopsie, there's my timer. You don't have to agree with all the people in the stands around you to go to a Friday night football game in your small town. You can be an atheist and still respectfully stand there silently while one of the local preachers gives the pregame prayer that they probably don't do anymore because they're afraid of getting sued. You could be an atheist, you could sit there silent because you at least communally agree on these general ideas of community and values and morality and ethics. You can argue and debate and disagree on the details, but we used to have these spaces where we all agreed at least on the big picture. And now, something we referenced in our part one earlier, the postmodernists, the woke ideologues now, they laugh at you if you think gender is binary, and yet their thinking on everything else is so binary. Everything is us versus them. Everything is power. Everything must be seen through this lens, even escapism. You can't just sit back and, you know what, I need to turn my brain off and I need to just have a little
Let me
talks.
let me interject for the sake of brevity here. This is akin to the libs of TikTok exposures of teachers wearing shirts that say teaching is activism. Everything is activism. Making movies, making shows, how you present yourself in your sports realm. If you have a platform, it is incumbent upon you to be an activist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this all goes wrong, because the whole point of entertainment, whether it be sport, show, movie, local theater, everything, art. Yes, there is a place for politics and art, but it is a place where necessity takes hold, or just the artist's personal opinion takes hold. But it's still art, which means it has to be good and pleasing to
Yeah.
the eye.
And
And this is where we go wrong with what we're about to talk about.
yes.
Is the activism is there, but the art is missing.
This is something we reference in our season one preview when we gave our predictions and expectations, is that the modern left, the modern radical left, have become what they used to mock, which was the Christian conservative entertainment media. Because, frankly, as a Christian conservative, they almost always weren't good as art, because first and foremost, they were activism. First and foremost, it was the Christian conservative message. Now, there in standard mainstream media, there was always a leftist liberal bias because that's who the people were who were making it. But their primary goal was to craft good art. And so the bias just bled through naturally because that's who they were, but that wasn't the goal. And here you see now, I don't remember who I heard who's been saying this recently, is that it isn't just actors who are cast anymore. Producers, directors, writers, these people are all cast now, not hired. Do you check a particular box? Okay. You know, it's like a casting directors, you know, rather infamously have a look that they're looking for. Okay, and so it doesn't matter what your talent level is in acting. If you walk in and I envisioned someone more like this, well, okay, next. And that's what they're doing now. Is we have a look we're looking for. We have to check a box. The talent doesn't matter. The talent is either wholly irrelevant or at best secondary. And to that point, this this season was so bad. My first note here is in the previously on. I hadn't even gotten to the
let's
episode
get to
yet.
ours because I've got something that actually piggybacks on what you just said, but I have a certain spot where I noted it as well. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to bring it up then or just go ahead and bring it up now. But I just remembered I needed to send my computer these pictures so I can share them. So you
Okay,
go
so while
on.
you're doing that, so I pulled it up real quick here to remind myself what it was, and it was something Land says in the recap, and it's where they're in the tub in Emmons Field, and because we had to see Land's butt for some reason, and
Because they
something
were trying to
he's
bring women
yep.
into the fantasy audience. That's
So
why.
he said something there that I didn't catch at the time, and this actually ties into my second note here was um who are these characters is my second note, because both Lan and Moraine, who we see first, are inconsistent. And this was something I tried to do here is I'm not just griping about these characters because I've read the book and they bear almost no resemblance to the characters in the book. These characters are inconsistent internally within the writing of this show, because consistency is irrelevant. Activism is what matters. So he says in that scene, in whatever episode that was, the first or second episode, before you, I had nothing to live for and nothing to die for. That was written because it sounds cool, and Moraine is the heroine primary character of the first season.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch that episode again when they were in the bath to see if that's what he said?
No, but I have it. They show the scene here, and I turn the closed captionings on so I can make sure I said it exactly. That so that in playing that scene here in the recap, of course that is asinine for who Gillian is in the books, but later on in that season one, they do give you a little bit of Lan's backstory from the book, and it's nonsensical because that's not true. Before Moraine, he had everything to die for. And he did have something to live for, but it was fatalistic. He lived for his one-man war against the shadow.
Well,
That's what he lived for, and that's what he was going to die for.
one thing I've noticed a lot from this season, and again, go away if you haven't watched it. They do interject a lot of reference to New Spring, but in a very blunt way, in a very let's throw this in your face way. Whereas we weren't ready for that yet, as far as chronologically with the books, but also it was so again we talk about when I talk about art, one of the things I think of is the word, if I say art, one of the first words that pops in my mind is touch or finesse, that definition of touch, and there's no finesse here. It's just in your face. Boom. This is Lan because this is where they came from. This is Nynaeve and Lan's relationship. Ugh. Take it or leave.
But so another problem with that asinine comment is that in the first season and then a little bit in these first three episodes, it undermines his relationship with Nynaeve, because when he met Moraine, he didn't really have anything different to live for. It was just she directed his obsession. His only point in life was his one-man war against the shadow, the unwinnable war that he knew was going to kill him. And he just wanted to make sure he died alone in the blight rather than bringing anyone with him. But he really didn't have anything to live for until he met Nynaeve. And that's something we've been talking about a lot in our last couple of Winter's Heart episodes, because you get that a lot in their relationship in the first half of Winter's Heart. There is Nynaeve changes him. It kind of awakens his manliness, whereas before everything in him was subsumed by the warrior. And
I would
they
use a different word. It was subsumed by revenge.
mm,
Where with his relationship with Nynaeve, it's something that builds.
yes,
Is one of the
that's a
themes
better
of
way
the
to
whole
put it.
points. The whole
Mhm.
points of the book is, why we even have Perrin to begin with, and why he went off the rails in the last few books, is he was the builder. He
It,
was the person. He was the person to take up the the damage that happens from a war between good and evil.
there's a reason he's
Realistically,
a blacksmith.
there's a reason he's a blacksmith.
Yeah. So just right off the bat before it even starts, and then I'm harping on this because it just compounds itself through these first three episodes about who these characters are, even within their own internal writing of season one in these first three episodes. No, that's not true. Just within your own scenes.
All right. So let's get on to the show, because I've got pages of notes to get through, and I think you do too. So, opening scene, season 2, episode 1. Again, last chance. Go away if you don't want spoilers to the show before you watch it.
They shouldn't watch it. It's awful.
Yeah, I'm okay with this opening scene. It's using a version of the Dark Friends social,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool because that's the opening of Great Hunt 2. To get, and also they use this scene to push a philosophical point. What is good and evil? What separates the animal from the evil? Because he's got the little girl there, which I didn't get at
Yes.
first, but then he takes her out there and she pets the Trolloc and he's like a dog. It's what is animal instinct and what is actually evil. And is she the point of this is, to me, Shamael's a philosopher. This is something that's going to basically, this is probably what engulfed him and caused him to go down the dark path anyways, because we had this religion of the creator and we had this pure society, which was the Age of Legends. And he was like, well, we're denying our animal instinct. Some of this needs to be addressed. And I can see somebody with those kind of thoughts in that society going down a path that eventually ends with evil and nihilism.
Mm-hmm. I thought this scene was almost great. Not just
Yeah,
good, but
yeah.
almost great.
And this
Kid,
is this. So my predictions for from the last time, for those that watch our Wheel of Time episodes, remember I said I wanted to see more of Ferris, and he's actually a really good actor. And this was a good scene.
he
Yeah.
was by far the best, to my mind, the only good thing in these three episodes for a number of reasons. The only reason I won't go as far as to say it was great is it was odd that there was a child there in the first place. It seemed like a contrivance just to have this moment. But my expectations were so low. I kind of expected them to do the cheap and easy thing here, which was I was like covering my wife's eyes because she doesn't like gory things, and especially when kids are involved. I fully expected that he was going to feed this girl to the Trollocs.
See, I got the different feel because the actor was so convincing to me.
Yes.
And but at the same time, I think where your bias is the book, where it was a meeting in the world of dreams, whereas this was a meeting in a farm wife's house, in
Yeah.
a dark
Yeah.
friend's
Yeah.
house, somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, where I'm hiding that I'm a dark friend, but the kids are still around, kind of thing. So it was kind of a more of a real world feel to something we know happened in the world of dreams. So I didn't think it was as contrived. I thought it was
Mhm.
just, I thought it was at worst kind of a skipping of something that's so important from the books, which is the world of dreams. And I have a feeling the whole series is going to keep with that theme, because we didn't get any of it in the first season. right?
The only dreams we get was when Balzamon's face shows up
Yeah,
like in their
and it's
dreams.
more he's just haunting your nightmares versus
Yes.
an actual metaphysical world that exists.
But
So,
to, that to me that was kind of a twist at the end, because even if you don't know the story from the first season, you know these are monsters and that these are the bad guys. So I can't imagine I was the only one that was waiting for the little girl to be fed to the monsters, and he didn't, because he would rather corrupt than destroy.
well, which is in our on our regular book episodes is why I actually we've talked about this, why I love the Forsaken scenes so much is because I do try to humanize them.
Mm-hmm.
And what we got was a very humanization of Ishamael. And like I said, I can see how somebody would go down that path if they lived in that time, but they also saw this other thing. And he Ishi is actually what we'd call it in Dungeons and Dragons term, he's probably neutral evil, where he doesn't care if he does the wrong thing. He's a true psychopath.
Hmm.
He doesn't care if he does the wrong thing, but he's not trying to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
He just thinks he's like, well, I observed this about these things. Agenor made the Trollocs, but they're still beast and human. Yeah, because they're beast, they eat humans because they're tasty, but they don't go eat humans because they hate humans.
So here's so I'm looking at the scene right now, and this is, to me, this was frustrating because to me this is great writing, not just his delivery but the lines. So when he takes the girl out there and he's holding her hand and he says, uh um what if he's not evil? What if he's not a monster? What if he's just hungry?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I thought he was going to feed the girl to the monster, but he doesn't. He's corrupting her. He's like, hey, this is just this is just like an animal. It's just like your dog. Yeah, your dog might bite you if he's starving or if you hit him, but here, pet the monster because he's not a monster. He's just misunderstood.
Mm-hmm. Well, which is I think is a good theme, and I actually appreciate that
Mm,
going forward. And realistically, in the books, that's what we see from Min too, where she's philosophizing all these things. What if the veil between good and evil is not what we think it is?
mm.
And well, that's also how they cleanse the power, as we're about to get to that in the books. So, spoiler for the books too. They cleanse the power, but using the difference between human malevolence and natural evil to
Yes.
fight each other. And which actually tells you part of it is the dark one isn't evil, he's just nature. He's just the dark
He's
side of nature.
pure entropy.
Yeah. And well, if you have any doubt, I think it's Instagram you can follow. It's a channel called Nature is Metal. And basically it's like Komodo dragons eating the intestines of a deer while they're still alive,
Oh
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Nature is metal. Nature doesn't care. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
Good and evil cares. Nature doesn't care. One of the things we say in the strength and conditioning world is the weights don't care about how you feel. And there's a life lesson in that.
Yeah. It's a good point. All right, so what's your next note? Because
The
um
first scene with Maureen coping with her life without the power, where she's doing all these things like dragging buckets upstairs and everything.
mhm,
I thought that was very contrived. It was
mhm.
rushed. And realistically, it should be Swan's story later. But I think they combined those two stories for
I
expediency.
hadn't thought of that. Yeah. Yeah, that when
Eh,
when we see her in Fires of Heaven, and where she's got to learn how to have purpose and navigate the world without not only her position of authority but her physical power. It's um yeah, go ahead. My My only thought here was, I mean, they're starting the girl boss off right away, because to me that's what that scene was Mulan carrying the water up the steps. Except, this is why modern movies suck. This is an example that Drinker actually uses in that series, is contrasting the animated Mulan with the live action. Is in the animated, uh, she couldn't do it at first. She had to work to be able to. That's what that training montage
Mhm.
is she couldn't do it. She had to work to be able to do it. And then there came a point where she worked harder than everyone else, so she was actually able to outwork the men, but not at first.
Well, which also in this scene makes me wonder about the chivalry of the men there. Lan is still there, Tomas is still there, and she's the one doing the water, and they're picking berries. There is that part, right?
Yep.
No, my next note on that was it's not the best use of Bail Doman and not the best introduction to Bail Doman.
My note on that is I knew it and it still hurt,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the second I saw his face, I was like, "Oh God, that's gonna be Bail Doman, isn't it?" And it was.
Doobie doobie doo without as
Doobie
much
doobie
doobie
doo.
doos,
There
and
needed to be more doobie doos, but I
needed to
did
me.
like.
I like the actor,
I
but at the
liked the
same
look.
time,
I liked the
yeah.
accent. I thought that fit for kind of the Ileana accent. That's not what I hear in my head, but
But
I
Bail
thought it fit.
Doman's place was picking people up on the river and the sea. It wasn't going out of his way on land to sell something.
I I I I do like, and this is something that's going to come up later, again, is that in general, this is something we've talked about before, which was the way that in Lord of the Rings, they condensed the story by eliminating certain characters and using those lines and those scenes with another character, so that you could flesh out that character more and keep the story moving, and not lose those scenes.
Well, we're about to get to some of that with Leandrin here in
Yeah.
a bit. Yeah.
So using Doman, bringing him in this context as a general idea, I like that he is one of Moraine's eyes and ears, rather than say the no-name innkeeper from Ilion that you see in the Dragon Reborn and then you never see again. Well, actually, you do see him briefly with Bail Doman, but like using him instead of some of the other characters, like the Tinker you see at the beginning of the Dragon Reborn, is kind of what this scene I think was supposed to be. What was that scene, that
Mhm.
opening of the Dragon Reborn? So to me, in principle, that's fine. But then why was Moraine such a bitch to him? And why would he, as someone, as a person who values his own time, a person who knows his own value, why would he continue to be one of her eyes and ears if she's going to treat him like that?
Mhm. Well, and the whole deal where he was like, he was like, "I'll sell you this for this amount, but then on top of that, you can have this other," and she just pays for the other.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, 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 no. That was contingent on you purchasing the first one. As a salesperson, I've done sales in my life. It would have been like, no, that part of the deal is
I'll
only
sweeten the pot with
wrapped.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only wrapped here. You can't just say, "Oh, I'll take that one." No, that's not how this works. That's like what everything we complain about with the sea folk, right? It was very, like you said, making her boss bitch over this
Yes.
merchant.
Yes. And again, trying to trying to look for internal inconsistencies rather than just look at it from the point of view of someone who loves the books. They then completely undercut that at the end of that scene when she goes ahead and hands him the bag full of gold and says, "This will buy you provisions. Get the hell out of here. You're in
Mhm.
danger." But you, that just undercuts her boss bitch moment. And if she was already like that, it just made no
She would have
sense.
just made a good deal if she was already like that. She would have made a
Yeah.
deal that's good for everybody.
Yeah,
Uh,
but and she does do that we see that with all the Aes Sedai when we actually see them interacting with their eyes and ears. Is that's why they have eyes and ears, is because they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So we already see some of that. That's something that is done in the books. That's how they keep them happy and loyal.
All right, then we flip to the tower. Alana, you texted me about Alana.
Yes.
Is it the
So I
same actress? And I said yes, but what I think they really did is they're really, and this is something I'm going to bring up here in a little bit with Nynaeve. They're really pushing the diversity angle, so they're really pushing her Indian roots, which they didn't do a lot in the first season. You could tell she's from India because she's obviously Indian, and she has that accent. But at the same time, they didn't really push it. They just had the diversity higher. But now they're actually pushing the accent, the flavor of it, I should say. But then they also pushed her sensuality angle, because I think they're really trying to get that like they did in the first season with her warders. They're really trying to get that from her. I mean, just the scene where Egwene is cleaning up and she's in a threesome in the bed while she's doing it. Nobody would leave the door unlocked. Come on, especially in the White
Yes.
Tower.
And this is
Even in
something
circles where people are like cool about that stuff, they'd lock the door when they're in that situation. So it's very forced, I thought.
very forced, and it again, because the activism is the point, not the storytelling. The storytelling's the point in the books, and that's why Jordan uses phrases like pillow friends, because it makes sense in the context of the time. And there's not necessarily any judgment there or any stigma, but it there's still private matters are private, for crying out freaking loud. So and there are more prudish cultures. You get that in the books with the way different people dress, for instance, like the Kairhinen versus the Domini. Um, uh, th- that was a note I had, and then again later I had the same thought of, I don't know why they did this, but not only the look, but the way she was acting made me go maybe double take, because I didn't do a rewatch like you did and go, is this the same Alana? I had the same thought with Min. It's like, why did they change her look so much?
Oh,
That I,
don't
I
no
don't
wait.
I don't even know
Yeah,
if this is the same
let's save
person.
Min, because
Yeah,
I've got an analogy here that only us old
yeah.
folk will get. But
So it was odd to me, and then I kind of thought, well, but again, this goes back to our central thesis here, which is the activism is the point, not the art. So it's the scene is
well,
what
it's also the
matters.
dissociation.
Yes.
Yeah, from real
So
life.
so I don't need to make this person a consistent character in this world. I just need to have a collection of connected scenes that make the point, not tell the story, make the point that I want to make. Um, my next thought is, um my next note, so after that, uh they have the scene in the kitchen.
With Leandrin.
Uh no, isn't it Alana who comes and tells them
Oh
how to
yeah,
clean
yeah,
the
okay,
water?
yeah. And they're all, she makes them drink the dirty water, or filter the dirty water.
Yes, they have
Yeah.
to filter it. They have to drink it, so you'd better filter it and you'd better concentrate. I actually thought that was good, Nynaeve.
Oh no, yeah,
Is,
that was to
you know,
character. That's something
screw
that her from the
screw
books would have
you. I'll
done.
just
Yeah.
drink I'll just drink the nasty water. F you. Um but again, then they ruin it later, which we'll get into. I don't know. Where's your next
Right
thought?
after that is Leandrin trying to break her block. That was actually Swan Sanche on the boat
Mhm.
in the books. And I thought it really worked with how they were working things. Where Leandrin came in and just basically did the same scene where she tied her up with the power and showed her
Yeah,
how incompetent she was.
that
And
that was another one of those. That was another point where we can point out that it's not just because it's not like the books, because I liked that. I thought that worked. That was a
Yeah.
good change. That when you're having to condense things into a visual medium rather than the ludicrously long book series of ludicrously long books, that worked. I liked that. You're repurposing this scene in this moment with this different character.
Hmm. So that was a good one for me. I don't know why I wrote original Star Wars vibe. I, uh, I'll have to think about why I wrote that note, but
Okay. Well, while you're
it
thinking about that, here's a note I made that ties it back into our opening here
yeah, that's my
because
last tower note for that part. So go ahead and go through what you need because the next note I have is about Perrin.
all right, so right before we leave the tower, there's that scene with the Aes Sedai all standing around because apparently they don't have chairs in the White Tower. They're all standing around talking, and it's an odd scene because of who's there.
It's
But
Leandrin, Alana, Shiriam, and who else? Anybody else?
Leanne,
Oh yeah, Leonette. Yeah,
yeah, she's there because did they change actresses? Why have we not seen Sawan? Did
I
she
don't
get
know why we haven't
recast
seen
or
Swan, but Leonette, she just. I'm sorry, the way they portray her, I'm hoping they're trying for a contrast, and this is a prediction.
yes,
This isn't
yes.
this isn't what is already there.
Well, no,
I'm
but
hoping they're trying for a contrast after she's stilled and she becomes her sultry self again,
yes.
because she is such a bitch.
To me, it works though because she's like that in the books. But or let me say, it doesn't work because she is like that in the books, and I think the character is pulling it off really well. She is very stern. I think that the actress's height helps. She's like a head taller than all the other
Well,
women
she's
there.
supposed to be, yeah. So they
Yeah.
did cast her
So
well.
she's very stern, but it works in the books because she's always in the background.
Hmm.
She is secondary to Sawan. When she starts to be thrust more and become more of a main character, it doesn't work as much. But here was my thought on that scene is one of the gripes about modern storytelling is the only way activist writers know how to make a strong female character is to make the men stupid, incompetent, weak, evil, or all of the above. That's not just that happens here, and there's no gender dynamic. But the thinking is so warped that even in a moment where you have all female characters, they make Leandrin strong in this scene by making Sheriam weak. She's she's bullied by everyone there, and that is besides being annoyingly out of character with the books, it's inconsistent even internally because they don't make a big deal about it, but she is the one in charge of the novices. I don't even remember if they use the title Mistress of Novices, but she's clearly the one in charge. So why doesn't she act like she's freaking in charge? She should have verbally slapped Leandrin down there and say, don't you dare know your place. These are mine. And so long as something that she had says in the book, so long as I am the mistress of novices, I mean, she stands up to Sawan at times because I'm the mistress of the novices and this is how I'm going to run it. If you don't like it, replace me. You know,
Hmm.
there is that element of her in the books, and you, even if you've never read the books, you should be going, where does she sit in the hierarchy here? Because I, I don't even think Leandrin is a sitter. I don't think we see her when we have that scene in the hall. I don't think she's one of the sitters. So why the hell does she get to act like this around everyone else? What is her position of authority here, especially in that scene where you have the keeper, second in command only to the Emerillin, and then you have the mistress of novices who's in charge of the novices and apprentices. Who the heck are you?
Well, the only thing I will say is this is kind of in the direction I thought they were going to go, where Leandrin is Elida and Elida was a bully.
Yeah,
And she was a
yes.
very effective bully. She was a very overpowering person. And I think that I think they really are combining. I was wrong about a combination, which we'll bring up later.
Yes.
But this one I still think is going forward. Leandrin and Elida are the same person.
But Sheriam shouldn't have been weak. Leandrin should have just been stronger.
Sheriam became weak in the books
Well, yeah, for totally different reasons,
for
though.
totally different
But
reasons, but at the same time, no, I did. The
there
look
there
was
were
wrong.
multiple scenes there where that actress looks uncertain or scared.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the casting, which it sucks because in what they wanted from her, I think she did a good job. But she was the wrong person for that person. If you wanted the strong mistress of novices.
What they needed, I think what they may have been trying to go for and utterly failed at is I didn't like Harry Potter, so I can't remember the name, but the old woman teacher there who's very stern and very, you know, strong and self-confident. I think they were going for something like that, and that's why they cast the older actress, but
No, but
instead
she's
they just
nothing
made her
like her.
look
I know what
feeble.
I know who you're talking about, but she's nothing like her though.
But I suspect that's what they were
Yeah.
trying to go for when they cast the older actress, but instead they make her look feeble. They make her look like an old woman instead of, someone with a lot of years of experience. All right, moving on.
Okay, so my next note is Perrin still sucks.
Yes.
Uno kind of sucks, but I like Ingtar and Masama. Ingtar, jury's still out on his character as far as the actor is concerned and what he's doing. Some of the lines still seem a little forced. But Masama it seems very natural.
I
And
didn't even know who that was.
I didn't think of that casting, but when I saw it as a casting, I really see it now. So he was in Last Kingdom. He was one of the right hand men of Uhtred in Last Kingdom, and he was really good in that, and it really played over into this one. He's kind of playing the same character,
Yeah.
but I can see where he would go down the road Massimo goes. So it actually really fit for me there. Uh,
My note on this scene is again trying not to just hate on everything. I was annoyed. We were both annoyed that Elias wasn't in the first season, but
yeah.
if that was because this was your plan all along, I'll allow it because I thought this was a good substitution here.
Well, yeah, here in Massima, or excuse me, here in Elias,
Mhm.
substitution combination was good. The way they're portraying him, though, is so. I mean, he's like basically on DMT the whole time.
Yes, yes. I did not like the way they wrote and portrayed him, but my first thought when I saw him, especially once you see his eyes, is, oh God, is that Elias? But then as it went on, I thought, you know what? This works as a substitution. But then as it went on, I thought, except that's not Elias.
No,
What the hell
it's
is he
not.
doing?
Yeah, it's very. It's like the witch. You met the witch doctor in
Yeah,
Louisiana. It's not. Elias was a wise old man who lived in the tower and then ran away from it because
he's
he knew what he was.
he's been
This
around a
guy
while. He's
was the
seen a lot
guy
of
who was
stuff.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, man, you want to have a blunt here and I think that's part of the culture that they're trying to force forward is this whole Rastafarian kind of enlightenment that you get from doing drugs. And I'm the more liberal one of us, and I'm saying this. It's this idea that okay, this is kind of normal. This is the good guy, but he's high all the time.
mhm, mhm.
And they're making it supernatural, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the actor's high the whole time that he's doing this.
Um. Oh, so something I didn't make a note on, but uh, I think they're doing something different with Loyal because one of our complaints was he's too small. and they're doing the camera tricks that Lord of the Rings did with the hobbits, he looks bigger to me in these scenes.
But my problem is in some scenes.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's bouncing back and forth.
It's most noticeable when they are all standing still, because he's clearly standing on something, because he's behind everyone, and he's, his shoulder is at the top of everyone else's head. But
Mhm.
at least you have that, you can tell this isn't just this isn't just a human with a funny face. This is a giant.
Mhm. Then we from there we go back to
The
oh no,
tower.
we meet Varen. No, we meet Varen. And
Oh,
so this is another
yeah.
combination that I think works. Combining Varen with Vandine is kind of weird, but I
Yes.
see how it works with pushing a storyline that has to be a few seasons long on
Yes.
TV. Because we have Adelace and Varen instead of Adelace and Vandine.
Mhm.
Actress for Varen's decent. She's pretty good. It she fits the looks part and she's talented enough to kind of pull it off. I think some of the scenes were contrived, but
And she has a similar enough build and facial features to look like she could be a sister to Varen, or
mhm.
who's Vandine. So they look like they could surely be related.
Now I think the person they picked for Adelaide though, she was not convincing as an Aes Sedai at all. It
But
was interjecting some of the Alana kind of
exactly. But
yeah.
but okay, so she was the green, but
She was Lizzo for Aes Sedai, is what she was. She was Cardi B.
yeah.
She was WAP.
Um, it is they are making all greens hedonists.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a hint that some greens are in the books, but it's a hint. And now, because they're so obsessed with these things, they're making all greens hedonists. It's like, why isn't there enough that just Alana is like that?
Yeah, but
What
it's not only
why
that, it's her attitude towards everything.
yeah,
Oh, people got attacked. Well, it happens. You got to learn to live with
it's
it.
wine o'clock, baby.
Yeah.
She's a she, she's a suburban California, middle-aged woman. With it's 5 o'clock somewhere, give me my wine.
My next note has to do with what happens after that. So, and so
It,
the first time I watched this, when I made the notes, I actually watched it twice. I watched it once when I told you after our last Wheel of Time episode, I'm probably going to get drunk watching this. First time was that one. The second
yeah.
time was sober, but the first time is where I got my notes. And
So then is the next scene the Nynaeve girl boss scene?
no, the next scene
Okay.
is when Moiraine tries to leave and the Fade attacks her.
Okay, I thought that was later. I
No,
thought no, because the next scene is back. We kind of jumped forward. I'm kind of skipping through it here right now. And the next scene is with Bail Doman, when she realizes something, and she's gonna leave later. That's when she tells Doman to get the heck out of here.
yeah, which
Um,
we talked about already.
right. And
And so
then,
she leaves.
well, hold on. Before we go there, we have a tower scene.
Oh, did I miss a tower scene? Hold
Yeah.
on. All right, sorry for the hiccup. We are finishing episode 1 here. And I had to change hats because we're going to get to Matt, but Matt in the series Amazon series does not deserve cowboy hat Matt.
No.
So I
There are moments where he does. But you can say that
yeah.
about the series as a whole. That in a vacuum, you can look at individual scenes and go, "That's pretty good," but it doesn't connect. There's no arc. There's no narrative.
Well, which makes it doubly bad for me because to me the actors and actresses don't deserve this. Some of them are better than what we're getting,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
would like to see them in other things.
uh Lan, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I've seen him in stuff before. I've liked him in other things.
We brought that up in the last
eh,
episode.
I don't know that I've seen Ishii in anything else, but he's great.
He's great. Yeah.
I know I've seen Rosamund Pike in things, and she's good. Uh, I'm I'm not wild about a Gwen or a Lane, but we'll get there. Nynaeve is pretty
Egwene is
good for what they give her, for the material she has to work with.
Egwene is hot, but other than that, I haven't
A
seen
Gwen,
anything
or do
good
you
from
mean
her.
Elaine? I think
No,
you mean Elaine.
Egwene. No, Egwene. I think
Really?
Egwene's hot. Yeah.
Me and my wife do not agree with you.
No, I think Elaine is not very good looking.
My wife was the nicest person in the world who doesn't like to say bad things about anyone. About at this point, about halfway, 2/3 through the episode, she goes kind of under her breath, "She's not very pretty."
Oh no,
It's like,
Egwene I would bang in a heartbeat.
uh, I think she couldn't be cute, but she doesn't. Anyway, moving on. So hold your thought about, well, actually, uh, yeah, hold your thought about the fades, because that's actually the last scene in the series. We've gotten out of order here, because the next scene after the Shinarans is the scene where Nynaeve is practicing the sword with Yvonne and the other one. Drawing a blank. I just
Oh yeah,
blank
yeah,
on
yeah.
his-
Ivan and Steppen? No, Steppen's the one that died. Uh no, they interjected another
Maxim. Someone,
Maxim.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
there's a
Maxim is not Alana's warder in the books. He is a warder of one of the Aes Sedai that
okay.
dies in New Spring.
Okay. So
That's
they're
why
just
you don't know
okay.
who he is realistically, but
I knew she had two warders
no.
until
He's a warder that is mentioned when Egwene is looking for a new captain of the warders
I don't know
later.
why they didn't just use Steppen, because that's a big
Steppen
effing
dies.
deal.
Steppen died in the
Right,
Steppen
that's
is the
the
one that
nipple
so
pounding scene, but I don't know
but
why
no
this
no
character.
no Steppen in the Aes Sedai that dies in the first season, that Aes Sedai is one that dies in New Spring, that is killed by the Black Ajah, and
Right.
Steppen was
Well,
her warder.
and it's a bizarre change of names and characters, and I don't know why they did that. It wasn't necessary.
No,
That
we
guy
could
could
have
have been
kept the
explained.
actor for Steppen around a long time because
Yeah,
although you needed that caliber of actor to play that scene as good as it was,
yeah,
because you actually got the feeling, and this is one of the highlights of season one. You got the feeling that he was trying to do good, but then you realize he's manipulating everybody to that end.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was one of the most believable things until Lan grabs his nipples at the end.
Yes.
And that episode was so good until the end, and the end was so bad that it made it the worst episode in the series.
So this scene here, I again, this is back to the activism is the point. The worldview is the point. They didn't need her to be this kind of a girl boss, because they just had that scene when she drank the dirty water and said, I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna do my thing. You're not gonna manipulate me. You're not gonna make me do what you want to do." Okay. They don't need her to also be the only redeemable thing about this scene to me is that they actually made it pretty clear that the warders are just playing with her.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Yeah, there's that, but there's something I wish they would have added, because I kind of picked this up, but only because we're over analyzing everything. Is there could have been a scene where she's talking to either Egwene or somebody else similar. Egwene would have been the only person that made sense there. To say something to the effect of, like Egwene asking her, "Why are you even doing that?" Because you can channel, and her actually opening up and saying, "I can't when I want."
yes.
You know,
But
that would have been okay. And I kind of picked up that she was trying to have that, like, I can't channel whenever I want, so I need to be able to protect myself.
there's also a character element there from the books, which is that she knows her limitations, and she knows that the power isn't the answer all the time. That's why she still uses herbs, because, okay, this isn't something I need to use the power to heal. Here, let me mix you up a tea that'll take care of that headache, kind of thing. So you could have brought that element in as well.
You could have, just with what you just said, you could have had that in the conversation with the warders. One of them say, why you even do this?
Yeah.
If you can channel, and her say, well, I can also heal with herbs when
Yeah.
channeling isn't possible, that kind of thing. And so and then you can even have a warder step forward and say, that's why we exist as warders. And you could have had an interplay there that explained chapters of the book in just one little thing, but they didn't do it.
Yes.
They
No.
just made her
No.
girl boss.
Because she needed to be a girl boss. Like I said, the only redeeming thing to me about that scene is there's an element of a father wrestling in the living room floor with his child.
Yeah, that's why I didn't yeah, it didn't make me cringe like a lot of the other things in the series, even though my initial reaction was to cringe, but the end result of that
that
scene wasn't too bad, because it was obvious when Ivan took the sword from her that they were just playing with her, and it wasn't that she was the badass. If she had won that fight legitimately, then it would have been like, oh god, here we go.
But of course she did against the freaking Trolloc when she went Navy SEAL on them in the first season. Um,
Well, let's get to the end of this one where Moiraine tries to escape,
yes.
and then,
So, all right, but before we get there, oh
well, my,
gosh,
my first words in this note is, oh my fucking god. So this is how bad I thought this scene was.
which scene?
When she leaves and the fades
Oh yeah.
attack.
All right. So hold on. I have a few more things I want to rant about even before we get there, which is so I don't remember which scene in particular sparked this note, but one of the things that annoyed the ever living crap out of me about these first few episodes, can we please have characters that talk to Aes Sedai like freaking Aes Sedai? Now, when Elaine shows up, we finally get that because she talks to the Aes Sedai like you're supposed to. Why do we never
Sort
see
of. I've
Egwene
got a
and
bitch about
sort of,
Elaine's.
sort of,
Yeah.
more than Egwene and especially Nynaeve?
Yeah.
Why do we never see them being punished for being impudent little brats?
Yeah, they are novices in this whole first episode,
So
at least.
besides that fact, you're undermining your world building because the Aes Sedai are supposed to be awesome, but they're letting this teenage girl backtalk them.
Well, and it's funny because you could have done it in a 30-second scene by having her backtalk to Leandrin. I think that's the scene you're talking about when
That's the main one, yeah.
yeah, having her backtalk to it, and then having her scrubbing a pot and going, it was worth it.
Yes,
You
yes.
could have done it in a 30-second scene.
It would have reinforced for Nynaeve, if you had it with that scene with Nynaeve, it would have reinforced her drinking the dirty water. It would have been a tie back to earlier in the episode.
Yeah, so you could have easily done that. Yeah, it would have been a production thing where you had to have the pot and everything, but we're talking about thousands of dollars in $1 billion budget. It's not a big deal, and it wouldn't have been much for the actress. You could even have hired a Laris to come and smack her butt with a wooden spoon while she's doing it. It would have been she could have this would have been a comedic scene. She's scrubbing the pot and she goes, "It was so worth it." Right
Yeah,
after
and
that
then
scene, so you connected, and then Laura smacks her in the butt and she goes,
and
it
then
would
you
have
would
been
have you
perfect.
would with Loris there, you would have had some good body positivity. So,
Yeah.
um,
You could have had
uh,
Lizzo play Laris, and you would have had your diversity and body positivity.
so something else that goes along with these several scenes here, and then when we get to Matt is when I really lost it. And I texted this to you, is why does every character in this stupid show cry all the time?
Yeah, we're not there yet though. That
That
was that the first episode? Because we didn't get Matt till the second episode.
No, he showed. Let me. I've got the, and I'm skipping through here. So we already talked about this scene, the scene with Leandrin, which was on the boat with um uh Sawan on the boat going back and they use Leandrin, and that was fine. But then they ruin it with Nynaeve crying at the end. That's not who she is. Now, it's hard to pull off. I've done some amateur acting, and it's more difficult than people think it is. And so I
Mhm.
try and give credit where it's due, and you know, benefit of the doubt and whatnot. It's hard to pull off, but what you want in that scene is her on the verge, looking like she might break down, but she won't. She refuses. She will not let this woman see her cry. She will not let this woman. I mean, she should have been struggling because she got slammed against a wall, but damn it, I'm going to stand up. Why is she still lying on the ground? Get up, because you're Nynaeve and that's who you are. And instead,
Mhm.
she's crying. Um, and then let's see here. Oh, then you get another Perrin scene when they're burying the bodies. That was actually a good scene because, again, you're trying to condense things here, and there are
That's the
moments.
second. That's the second episode.
No, I'm still in the first episode, dude. I've got the season 2, episode 1. I'm still looking at it.
Yeah, but that was after the flies and the Murdral, which is the second
Uh,
episode.
no, this is when I don't think it's the flies. They find the burnt wagon. Yeah, when they find the burnt wagon and they find some bodies, um, and then they bury them. And one of them is a Shinaran, and they go ahead and they bury them. And I, it wouldn't have been that hard to put in the part about that's actually there in the book, but I'll ignore it for the time being. So there's a scene here where they're burying these people, and I like that Elias buries the dog and nobody says anything about it. You don't need to. You
Mhm.
just plant this seed that something is different here. And wait, what? Why is this guy burying this dog? I liked that they didn't pin it. They didn't know, nobody said anything. They just did it. But then I like the conversation there between Ingtar and Perrin, because you're trying to condense this Great Hunt's a big book. And you had the moment there of Ingtar the philosopher, Ingtar the you start to see the initial glimpses that this is someone who's a bit fatalistic. This is someone who's trying not to lose hope, but he might have already lost it. So I liked that actor. I thought he did a good job of that in that scene. I just wish Perrin didn't suck because he kind of ruins the scene. Um,
Yeah, I'm trying to. I thought I had a note that said the new
all right.
Matt.
45 minutes into it in season 2, episode 1, A Taste of Solitude, at about the 45-minute mark or 46-minute mark is when we first finally see Matt. And that's where Leandrin is reading him the letter. And again, why is he crying? Why is he sitting on the floor crying? Now, you do see moments where he's actually Matt. And it made me think there were some moments where I thought, I think this guy may have read the books and be fans of them, because there are moments where he's Matt, like on the dot, but not in this one. Because what should have happened there is it opens with him looking away. He's sitting on the ground looking away while Leandrin is reading him this letter, and you can kind of see the anguish in his face. That's okay, fine. You know, he's been in, as he says, he's been here for months locked up. And so he's despondent, he's frustrated. All right, you have some anguish on your face. But then when he turns and looks at her, that should be gone,
Mhm.
because he's going to put on that smarmy, snarky, you're not going to get me down, you're not going to win. And you see some of that later, but it's intermingled with this obnoxious crying face that so often, and this is a failing of both the writing and the acting in modern media, is they seem to think that in order to portray emotion, you either have to be shouting or you have to be crying. You see that a lot. And this series is one of the most horrific examples of that. Is I need you to be emotional, so shout. I need you to be emotional, so cry. And kudos to you if you can cry on command, because it's really freaking hard. Um, if you've ever done any acting, I can't do it. I was never able to do it.
You got to rub onion in your eye, my friend.
Yeah, unless you poke yourself in the eye. But so I mean, kudos to you for being able to do it. But why are you doing it? Why is it written that way? Why is it directed that way? Um, okay, so now right before we get to the scene that you want to rant about, which is where um uh which is where Moiraine is going to leave. So before we get to that, Vera and Adelaus, Tomas land, they're all sitting there having dinner together. And to me, this was another moment where internally they ruined their own previous scenes, which is that Varen says 20 years you spent together. Well, wait a minute. Then why do they still act like they don't know each other? Why are they acting like they're acting like newlyweds who are having their first fight?
Mm-hmm.
That I just thought of that, and I think that is probably the best explanation of why I'm so frustrated with the portrayal of Lana Moraine here. And again, they undercut it in their own dialogue. You've been together for 20 years. This is when I was ranting after the fact to my wife. I made the point that because I made that point, and she said, "Well, we fight," and I said, "Honey, we haven't had a real fight in 10 years because we've been married 20 years. So, we're the and for you can argue that, and they've in the series, again, not just from the books, but in the series, they have done a decent job explaining the water bond. So you can argue that, and this they actually do make this point in the books, that you can argue that the bond between an Aes Sedai and a warder is closer than the bond between husband and wife. Because you think you know what your wife or husband is feeling because you've been around them and you know them. You know what your Aes Sedai or warder is feeling. You know it. You can feel it. It's in the back of your head. It's this quasi telepathic power. So then why the hell are you acting like newlywed strangers who are having your first fight?
Because young unmarried women wrote the script.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Now, getting to the end there, is that why she runs off then?
Exactly.
Because I
because it's
just
not
had my
no
first
this
fight,
is
so
this
I'm
is
gonna run
actually
off.
something women struggle with right now because and this is not their fault per se. It's the fault of the culture we live in and the people who perpetuate it, which is somewhat in the domain of the movies in the film. Is if it's not perfect, go.
Mm.
If it doesn't make you happy all the time, go.
Well,
Positive vibes, right?
that's a really good point and a really good analogy, because how often do you see the headlines about a celebrity marriage and, oh, they're getting divorced and it hasn't even been a year?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got a very good friend, and she's a sweet person. She's got a lot to offer, and she gets in these she's a serial relationship person, constantly in a new relationship, falling in love, and then it all falls apart. But she also is one of those, I share positive vibes, da 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 da, don't come to me with negativity, that kind of stuff. And it's like, there is negativity in a true relationship, and it is a part of true relationships because that's how they work. And as soon as that shows up, well, she falls for the common narrative, which is negativity is bad. So I'm going to go because they're toxic. They're toxic to me. And
Rather than just being someone who's different. So maybe you figure out the differences and work it out.
Yeah. And men don't kind of work that way. I mean, some fall into that trap, but men are like, she's cool enough. I like it. Maybe I have to take a break every once in a while, but that's when I go out with the boys. and everything's fine. And that's when they're kind of blindsided by the, you're not making me happy. It's like, but we just went out Friday and you were cool. No, but those are the people writing these stories right now. No, not the story that we should be going from. This one here, right here.
Oh, you just
The story that was already written, but the one they want to rewrite. And it's just go away. You'd be you. You do you. And that vibe really pulled from Moiraine pulling away there, and everybody berating Lan about him not giving her space and him not
Oh,
understanding
that's a good
her.
point that I'm annoyed I
And
didn't make a note about that, about how from the
and what
perspective
did
of
he do
all
in
the three other
response?
characters.
He simped.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
simped and was burned by it, by the way. They
At,
inadvertently shot themselves in the activist foot.
at no point does anyone say, Moraine, why are you being a bitch?
Mm-hmm.
At no point does anyone say that. And yet all three of those other characters, Varen, Adelaus, and Tomas, all three of them take a turn pointing out how he's the problem.
Scott, if you're watching, comment at this point. We are at the about an hour and 15-minute point here ish. An hour and 20 minutes. They made all men Gawain.
All right, so that's a good that is a good point, because I'll save it for later, but there's a connection there, something you just said, and remind me about it. I should make a note about that, about Galwin.
Yeah, because we're barely ending the first episode, and like I said, we're about the hour and 20-minute
all right,
here.
so you just, again, I'm trying to, as much as possible, look at the internal inconsistency and ignore the books. They showed in the recap that this is what you said just made me think about, but we just went out Friday night and you were cool. I just protected you from Trollocs, hundreds of them. That was one of the few good scenes in the first season. Was him, weaving his way around her so she could throw out fireballs, and he kept the Trollocs from getting close, putting his own. Now, yes, she ended up getting injured, but he's there, and it wasn't the only
He
time in that
jumped on
season.
her to stop a building from falling on her at the end of that fight.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
And add to that, she ghosted him in the last episode, and he went looking for her. And
she ghosted him, and she was grievously injured by whatever the hell happened there at the end with her getting blocked off or cut off from the source.
Oh no, we're gonna get to that in the last scene here, because I have a big giant note.
All right, so let's get to that, because that's what we're leading into here is, and I was
so my first note is, oh my fucking god, which I already opened up with. Moiraine kills a Fade with a dagger. So in the opening part of that, and I'm like, what the freaking heck?
My note on that is, in the books, it took a lot longer for the Madral to become a joke. And they weren't even that much of a joke.
But then she kills one with a dagger and then is completely overpowered by another one. So it's like,
right, so before we get there, because this was something that someone else said that I was like, damn it, why didn't I notice that? Shadversity, who's someone my son turned me on to, and I watched some of his stuff. He's not one of my regulars, but he's on the show Friday Night Tights on Nerdrotic. And when I was watching it, he said something that annoyed me because I didn't notice it, which was, he pointed out Doman tells her he's being followed, and she recognizes that these are Dark Friends and probably Murdral. So if they're following him, then she should know they're close to her.
mm-hmm.
I mean, in her defense, if it's never stated, but if we're going to give the benefit of the doubt, maybe one of the reasons she's running off is for the same reason she tells Doman to get the hell out of here and like get out on the open ocean. Yeah,
but she could have told Lan and Tomas.
Okay, maybe, maybe if you're a decent human being, you warn these four other people whose lives might also now be in danger. And maybe if you know that there are fades about, that there were fades following this guy who just visited you, maybe you do something more than just take a dagger to protect yourself. So again, in their own internal storytelling, this is just all sorts of foobard.
Yeah. So fast forward, she kills them or draw, but then gets overpowered. But Land shows up and does his hero-y thing until they're kicking his ass too. And yes, they end up getting saved by Tomas and Varen, or is it Adelaus?
No, it's
Adelaus
Varen, I'm
is
pretty sure.
Varen, yeah. Tomas and Varen. But we have a stolen scene here. At the end of that, Moiraine starts channeling again. She breaks whatever block is there. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice that.
It didn't fully manifest, but she starts making
Oh,
sparks in her hand and everything.
okay.
They stole Nynaeve's scene, saving her and Lan from the drowning boat in book 6.
Okay, so I didn't pick that up because I thought that what was happening there is she was trying her best to push through. They never even explained what the hell is blocking her. Is it a block? Is it a shield? Or was she actually severed? They never explained that. But
But the way it
my
played out is because Lan was in danger, she was starting to be able to break
right,
through whatever it was.
but my interpretation of that is that wasn't her, that was Varen. That you're supposed to think, oh my gosh, she can channel again, but then you look up and see, oh no, it's Varen.
Oh no, Varen is the one that charged Tomas's sword, which ended up killing the. But Moiraine was still channeling whatever she was doing. It wasn't enough.
We'll have to look and see if they call back to that later in the season, because yeah, again, that's not how I took that. You may be right though, that may be that may have been another repurposed scene that, unlike swapping Huron and Elias, that does not work.
No, it doesn't, because we need this for Nynaeve and Lan.
Yes.
And Nynaeve's block has to be broken by Lan for her interaction with him.
Speaking of things that don't work, again, internally, the fight scene with Lan and the Murdral in a vacuum, I liked that. I liked the choreography just from a technical aspect. I thought that was a good fight scene. I liked the showing that Lan is a badass, but he's outnumbered against literally supernatural creatures. So in a sense, it was kind of a callback to the scene in The Dragon Reborn where Rourke says, oh no, some of the younger people may wanted to have tried it, but I'm too old for this shit. And against 3 Murdral, we would have taken casualties. And you're kind of seeing that here. But you completely undercut it because Nynaeve basically killed one with a penknife.
Well, that was
Nynaeve. I mean,
not
Nynaeve, Moiraine. I was getting my girl bosses confused. That you open that scene with Moiraine killing one with a dagger, and so you completely undercut what follows, because you're instead of being heroic by jumping in to save her, instead of being badass by facing these 3 supernatural creatures, and even when he's literally hamstrung, he's still trying to get up and fight. But it's completely undercut because you had to have, because again, back to where we started, the activism comes first, not the storytelling. So we've got to have Moiraine have this girl boss moment. She cannot be saved by the man. So let's neuter the man, even accidentally.
You still have Tomas as an integral player there. And that was semi-similar to the books, because Tomas and Lan in the book stabbed the Drakkar.
It wasn't Tomas, it was someone else, but yeah.
It was
yeah, but that's not Tomas. Tomas is Varen's warder.
Oh, that's right.
So
okay, so
it was
yeah, the warder for Vandine, yeah. which is
I can't remember his name at this point.
yeah, but yeah, so but still, you have Lan and that warder stab the Drakkar through the heart, which I don't mind Tomas saving Lan here with the
Mm-hmm.
help of Varen.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine because
Oh yeah,
yeah, that to me wasn't a it
because he's
wasn't
outnumbered against supernatural creatures. He needs
yeah.
help. But again, back to where we started. If the storytelling was the point and the bias was bleeding through, like in the old days, that would have been enough to show the girl, the woman is the ultimately the one here. Because yes, Tomas is wielding the weapon, but it's he's able to succeed where Lan couldn't because Varen is enhancing him to counteract the supernaturalness of the fades.
Well, I don't
But that
mind.
wasn't enough for these writers.
Yeah, well, I don't mind that because one of the themes of the books is the men and women working together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But again, in the old days, that would have been enough for just the natural bias of, we need to show that women are awesome too. That in this day and age, that's not enough. You have to have Moraine killing one by stabbing it in the throat with a dagger.
Mm-hmm. Well, but it also because it happened before the land fight and then the ultimate resolve, it's like these things are so mortal they can die with a little stab in the neck.
Yes.
And we don't need the sword on fire for it to happen. So that kind of took away from how it ended. I like how it ended, but the fact that she killed one right away took away from that. And that's
Yes.
hence my notes.
Well, speaking of taking away from it, it's and I think we should probably call it here and do the next episode or two in another recording that so I'm skipping through here looking at this on mute, and something I didn't notice is the episode one ends with Moraine putting her hand on top of Lance, which is great, and you think, oh, okay, they the married couple had their fight, but now they realize they love each other. Except they don't going forward. And even so, the last note I have is what aren't you telling me? But so I don't remember if that happened at the end of this or the beginning of the next episode. But why did you end it like that if you were then just going to have Moraine neuter Lan? It doesn't make sense. But again, the narrative, a cohesive story isn't the point. It's
Yeah.
the moment is the point of, oh, look, she's holding his hand because he nearly died trying to save her, except she's still a bitch.
The hope would be that the writers have a lesson learned for her going forward. But that's a big
Spoiler
hope.
alert.
Spoiler alert, we're 3 episodes in and that doesn't happen. In fact,
Yeah.
I have multiple notes in a row for episode 3 that say, ah, it's like the Monty Python. It's the beast came and then ah,
Ooh, no, it's
uh,
crap. All right, well, I think we could probably do 2 and 3 and a one recording next week. But for now, we should probably end it there.
yeah, we're about an hour and a half in.
Because with episode 1, there was a lot of setup, there was a lot of ranting, and then a lot of what we ranted about this time is just gonna be rehashed in episode 2 and 3. So next time we'll talk about some of the more specific scenes in episode 2 and 3 and why they suck.
Well, my first note for episode 2 is fuck you, Rafe. So we'll see where that goes.
I remember the scene, but I don't remember where it was. I think the last text I sent you when I was watching this was fuck this show and the assholes who wrote it. And next time I'll say what scene specifically. I try not to cuss, as except in my head, but that one just set me off. So I'll talk about that scene next time. I will have lots to say about that scene in particular.
Yeah.
Guess in the comments, Scott. See if you can guess what scene from episode 2 or 3 prompted that. And if anyone else had a moment like that, let us know what it was, and we'll talk about those scenes next time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything we missed from the first episode. It still bothers me with the Matt character change, actor change, because the part most people aren't getting is why
Yeah,
Barney was not invited again, and why it actually changed the last few episodes of the last season,
yeah.
because he was supposed to be there as storyline dictated, but he refused to take an injection, which apparently for him would have been problematic because of underlying conditions. And they refused to let him on set because of that. So let us not forget that this guy, who was actually a better Matt than the Matt we have now, I think personally, this guy just is not convincing. He just, like you said, he's too cryy. He's too.
The only thing I liked about this guy was his height. I thought the last Matt was kind of short, and
Well,
Matt is
Matt is shorter, yeah.
compared to compared to Rand and Perrin. But there's a scene in It's Fires of Heaven where Melindra, they're having naked fun massage time, and she makes a comment about how you know you're you're
You're a
good
little short
despite
for a stormtrooper, you know.
you're good despite your height. And he gets annoyed because he thinks that everywhere else except the Aiel waist, he's taller than average, significantly so in some areas, but amongst the Aiel, he's actually short.
Yeah, but if we want to go down that route, Rand is too short and Perrin is too tall.
True.
Yeah.
But I like his kind of gangly, lanky look. The only thing I liked, well, not the only thing, there were scenes that I thought this was a really good Matt, and I liked the physicality of him. But overall, despite the fact that the writing was garbage, I thought the previous actor did a better job. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know who would have been a great Matt is the budget wouldn't allow. It's Tom Holland.
Eh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
But unfortunately, he was already famous with Spider-Man. So if they had caught him before then, they could have.
Well, I will say luckily for him, because he seems like a nice guy, so it's a good thing he's not
Yeah.
involved in this.
All right. Well, I guess that's the end of episode 1. We were looking to get through all 3 episodes
Yeah.
of the previously released section, but we did not. But we did bail dome in it, and yeah. No, so I guess to recap, opening scene, awesome. Ishi is pretty good. Oh, no, that's from one of the other episodes. I was gonna say
Yeah.
he has one of the worst lines in the whole thing.
I'm curious because I can take a stab at a couple of different things that it might be, but he delivers them all very well.
Okay, so take a stab. This is a prediction portion of this episode. What is the worst Ishi line from the first 3 episodes? And we won't get to it till later, and I'll tell you if you were right. Not
All right.
today. I'll tell you when we get there.
Well, we will see you next time then, and theoretically,
Oh, no, you're not
hopefully,
going to take a prediction here?
I'm not. I'm going to think about it, and then when we start next time, I'll tell you what I think it is.
Okay.
Um, but we will see y'all next time, which hopefully I've got to travel, so we'll see how it works out. Hopefully we'll be Friday with some more Winter's Heart, so we can have some good Wheel of Time
Yeah.
to cleanse the palate.
We'll at least get an hour in there. So at least we'll
Yeah.
stay on topic. So
Yeah, and we'll see y'all then.
all right, later.